Imagine being miles below the ocean's surface in an environment where pressure crushes like an invisible giant, where a single mistake, a human slip, can turn this extreme frontier into an unspeakable nightmare. Today, we're going to delve into the depths of one of the most shocking and physically devastating accidents ever recorded, the 1983 Byford Dolphin disaster. An event so brutal that it redefined the limits of what we consider possible in catastrophic failures and left permanent scars on the offshore industry. But this story goes beyond failed gears or violated protocols. It's a window into the almost alien world of saturation diving, a technique in which divers live for weeks under extreme pressure, in metal capsules, while their bodies turn into sponges saturated with toxic gases. It's about the dark courage of those who enclose themselves in pressure cages to keep the world's engines running. And most of all, it's about how complacency in high-risk environments can unleash primal physical forces, literally tearing reality apart, microseconds. At dawn on November 5, 1983, in the freezing North Sea, 4 men, William Cramond, Martin Saunders, Björn Bergerson, and Edwin Coward, would face a fate as swift as a bomb explosion, and so violent that it defies human comprehension. What exactly transformed a routine return to the surface into a horror scenario worthy of science fiction? How did chain of human and technical failures allow the relentless physics of vacuum to wreak its wrath? And what legacy of pain, but also of progress, has this catastrophe left us? Get ready not only for a narrative of industrial horror, but for a technical and human journey through the limits of bodily endurance, the deadly complexities of hyperbaric pressure, and the hidden cost of our energy dependence. Let's peel back the layers. To understand the magnitude of the disaster, we need to delve into the dark science of saturation diving. In the 1980s, to save time and costs on ultra-deepwater oil rigs above 100 meters, divers did not decompress after each dive. Instead, they were saturated. They lived for weeks in pressurized complexes on deck, like the Byford Dolphin Saturation Housing System, SAS, breathing a lethal mixture, helium and oxygen, heliox. Why helium? Because under absurd pressures, the nitrogen in the air becomes a dangerous narcotic, and pure oxygen, a poison. But helium brings its demons. It steals body heat at a frightening rate. Water at 4°C is already deadly. Imagine with increased thermal conductivity. Distorts voices into electronic duck tones, and saturates every cell of the body. The diver literally becomes part of the pressurized environment. Your blood, tissues, marrow, everything dissolves industrial quantities of inert gas. Returning to normality is not a simple ascent. It is a decompression of days or weeks, done inside steel chambers where the pressure is reduced millimeter by millimeter. Releasing the gas too quickly is the death sentence of decompression sickness, DCS, where bubbles form like champagne opened abruptly, blocking vessels, crushing nerves, paralyzing and killing. Or worse, traumatic gas expansion embolism, TAG, where lungs filled with compressed gas burst like balloons if the external pressure drops too quickly. It was a diabolical balance between economic efficiency and extreme biological risk. The Byford Dolphin was a technological titan, but its heart was this SAS system, a series of interconnected chambers, the diving bell, the transfer chamber, the saturation chambers, sealed by massive doors locked by pressure differences. Safety depended on physical locks, dogs, and protocols rigid to equalize pressures before any opening. It was a choreographed dance with death, where one wrong step meant the instant collapse of the boundary between two worlds, high pressure and atmospheric pressure. On the morning of the tragedy, the 4 divers were returning from the depths. They were inside the bell attached to the SAS transfer chamber, TUP. The internal pressure, 9 atmospheres absolute, ATA, equivalent to 80 meters deep. Outside, on the deck, 1 ATA. The difference was colossal, like smashing a can against a wall, but on a human and explosive scale. Protocol required that the internal door between the bell and the TUP be closed and locked. The pressure in the TUP be equalized with that in the bell. Only then Could the external door of the TUP be opened to the deck? But then the unthinkable happened. William Crammond, the person in charge of docking the bell, was still outside, disconnecting the umbilicals. Before the pressure in the TUP was equalized with the bell, step 2, and before the inner door was locked, step 1, the outer door of the TUP was opened. The result was pure physical violence. In milliseconds, the super-compressed air, 9x inside, the bell and TUP exploded outward with supersonic jet force. An instantaneous partial vacuum was created inside the complex. Physics kicked in, ideal gas law, PV/nRT. With the external pressure dropping abruptly to 1 ATA, the volume of gas inside the divers' bodies tried to expand violently, 9 times. Blood, body fluids, soft tissue, gases in the lungs and intestines, everything expanded explosively and catastrophically. The force was equivalent to being crushed by a steamroller and exploding from within simultaneously. The multi-ton bell was violently ripped from its mountings and thrown backwards. The bodies were disintegrated, ejected, and literally cooked by the instantaneous heat of adiabatic decompression. 3 divers inside the bell TUP were killed instantly, their bodies destroyed beyond recognition. The 4th, Edwin Coward, who was partially in the TUP, was ejected whole but mortally wounded. William Crammond, on the platform, was struck by the flying metal and the force of the explosion, also fatally. 5 lives were lost in an instant of irreversible physical chaos. The human impact was devastating beyond the physical brutality. Families faced not only the pain of sudden loss, but the trauma of the graphic details in the reports and the battle for recognition and compensation from powerful oil companies. The small, tight-knit saturation diving community was in shock. The myth of technological invulnerability was shattered along with the bodies. But from the tragedy came revolutionary changes. Physical interlocks, mechanical and electrical systems that physically prevent an external door from opening until the internal pressure is equalized with the external pressure and the internal door is not locked. Human error was mitigated by the physical barrier. Robotized procedures, communication, protocols and double-triple checking were universalized. Time saved, no longer justified skipping steps. Global standardization, organizations such as IMCA, International Marine Contractors Association, strengthened standards for training, equipment maintenance, and safety practices, influencing regulations worldwide. Focus on the human factor. Greater emphasis on psychology, fatigue, and safety culture, not just engineering. Crammond's mistake was also seen as a systemic failure of oversight and operational pressure. The Byford Dolphin tragedy remains a grim milestone. It is a brutal reminder that when exploring the outer reaches of the planet, from the abyssal trenches to the vacuum of space, physics does not negotiate. A single oversight can release primal energies that reduce flesh and steel to fragments. It reveals the human toll hidden behind the energy that powers our lives. Even today, as we move toward renewable energy, operations in hostile environments continue: deep mining, space, polar research. The lessons of the Byford Dolphin resonate. The most advanced technology is fragile without an obsessive safety culture, without physical redundancies that nullify human error, and without humble respect for the elemental forces we precariously control. The legacy of the 5 men lies not only in the norms that save lives, but in the eternal warning. On the border between the human and the extreme, complacency is the true abyss. If this journey into the depths of engineering, physiology, and human tragedy resonated with you, please give us a like. It helps bring critical stories like this to more people. Subscribe so we can explore other moments when technology, courage, and error collided, shaping our world. What extreme frontier should we explore next? Comment below. Until the next dive into history, remember, knowledge of past failures is the oxygen that fuels a safer future.